The world has witnessed many underdeveloped countries rise from the ashes in a short period of time. Among these countries, there are a few that grew at a pace no one was imagining a few decades ago. In the list of the developing nations currently, one special country has ensured consistent growth to be a strong economic contender. That country is Vietnam, a rising superstar in the Southeast Asian region. According to some recent experts, Vietnam is the next economic hulk in the region. Not only this, Vietnam is projected to be among the 20 fastest-growing economies globally in 2024. The question arises as to how Vietnam, which is a previously war-torn country, became the fastest-growing economy globally. What were the factors behind the development of such magnitude? Let's explore the facts with a short tour of some historical background. Vietnam suffered through lengthy warfare in the 20th century. The Cold War saw Vietnam separated into two parts, the North and the South. The North was supported by the Soviet Union, while the South was backed by the US and the West. Due to this proxy war between the two superpowers, Vietnam as a whole suffered heavy economic and human losses. The Vietnam War continued for 20 years, but soon after that, a unitary socialist state was formed. But it was remained as a poor country until the 1980s, and it was run by the communist government. Moreover, the Western sanctions and the war with China also crippled its economy. However, an interesting development took place in the 1980s that marked a shift in its economic policies. In 1986, the Communist Party of Vietnam initiated economic and political reforms. These policies were called Doi Moi policies. These reforms shaped Vietnam into a socialist-oriented market economy. Simply put, these policies took the nation out of economic crisis. According to many experts, the credit for Vietnam's economic figures today goes to the Doi Moi policies. First, the Vietnamese government started a rejuvenation policy. That means initiating a broad-based economic transformation. The one among these was an agricultural transformation. Second, it encouraged private industry and recognized private land rights while also banning collective farming. Third, Vietnam shifted from a closed economy to a capitalist one to reach out to global markets through pro-business reforms. Before the implementation of these reforms, Vietnam was among the poorest countries. The poverty rate was above 70%, and inflation was touching the sky. However, these reforms promoted economic growth indicators and attracted a large chunk of foreign direct investment. All in all, these reforms also took millions of people out of poverty and increased per capita income. Now, let's see how these policies have fostered Vietnam's growth on the international spectrum as of today. For the whole world, Vietnam was a communist government that fell under the corrupt political heads of government. But for the Vietnamese, survival was inevitable because the Asian region was continuously occupied by major economic powers like China, Japan, and Singapore. That's the reason Vietnam took crucial steps in its foreign policy framework and trade rules. In the past 3 decades, Vietnam's economy has transformed from an agricultural economy to a manufacturing and services-based economy. Vietnam took a 360-degree shift to manufacturing and international trade. But how did it boost the manufacturing industry and exports? Well, it is done by giving subsidies to targeted industries and attracting investment. Adding to that, Vietnam also improved itself through trade liberalization and the increasing demand for globalization. So by embracing these, it turned into an export-based manufacturing economy. Not only this, the country also signed collective trade agreements with the US, likewise attracting heavy foreign direct investments. However, after all these economic shifts, there were other growth drivers that improved the overall economy of Vietnam. That includes the construction and upgrading of industrial and technological parks with a highly committed workforce. On top of that, Vietnam also possesses a pivotal geographical position, being close to economic superpower China. That gives it handsome leverage over the biggest export-import market in the region. Vietnam also has a diverse range of investors and trade partners that make sure its factories get running, which eventually adds to the production of the materials and their exports. The most important factor for Vietnam's economy to boom is that it is independent of any influence from a major power. That is necessary because it doesn't have to be under the influence of any supermarket and enjoys the diversity of traders and investors. Although COVID-19 posed a big challenge for developing economies, Vietnam stayed safe from the harsh blows of the economic storm. It is quite interesting, as Vietnam was among a handful of countries that achieved growth for 2 consecutive years post-COVID-19. According to an IMF report, Vietnam's economy grew by 8% in 2022. That is one of the largest growth figures in the Southeast Asian region. According to some experts, Vietnam has become a major beneficiary for manufacturers as geopolitical tensions between China and the West escalate. So for that reason, major tech giants like Dell, Google, Microsoft, and Apple have shifted parts of their supply chains to Vietnam. The reason is that they want to adopt more of a China plus one strategy. So due to the continuous political risk of doing trade with China after the trade war, the investors are more than ready to enhance their supply chains with Vietnam. Not only this, but a whopping $20 billion have been funded by Japan, Singapore, and China as part of their foreign direct investment. Moreover, the U.S. has also increased its share of imports from Vietnam to 2% after the trade war in 2018. Despite major goals in 2023, Vietnam also had success in diplomatic affairs after setting up good relationships with big powers like China, Japan, and the U.S. In order to strengthen ties, the President of China, Xi Jinping, and U.S. President Joe Biden visited Hanoi for strategic partnerships. These high-level visits increased the national brand value of Vietnam. So this shows that Vietnam has become the center of attention for international investment. In a press conference, the Prime Minister of Vietnam, Pham Minh Chinh, pointed out that 2024 is going to be an incredible year for Vietnam in terms of development and growth. Moreover, the IMF has also highlighted a positive outlook for Vietnam's economy for 2024. According to the latest IMF report, global average economic growth is expected to be around 2.9%, while Vietnam's growth is projected to be around 5.8%. That is double the growth rate of the global economy. This puts Vietnam among the top 20 economies with the highest growth rate in the world. In light of the above discussion, it has become clear that Vietnam has developed itself to be placed among the big economic powers in the region. So, being economically powerful, it seems it will be in a win-win situation to fulfill its interests. What are your thoughts about it? Do you think Vietnam will grow economically more powerful in the future? Let us know in the comments section. For more such videos and hot topics, check out our next video and don't forget to subscribe.